Welcome to the Ghost Stories of the Battles YouTube channel, where we uncover chilling tales of haunted places. Join us as we venture into some of the most unnerving corners of our world, where echoes of the past linger, and the shadows of tragedy hang heavy in the air. What secrets lie hidden in the mysterious Aokigahara forest? Nestled at the base of Japan's majestic Mount Fuji, this sprawling expanse of woodland is both hauntingly beautiful and shrouded in sorrow. With its dense trees, twisting paths, and a silence that feels almost tangible, Aokigahara is a place where nature has reclaimed its reign. Yet it breathes with whispers that speak of the hearts that have wandered too far into its depths. Each footstep upon the moss-covered ground seems to stir memories of those who sought solace within its embrace, only to be met with darker shadows. The air is thick with a palpable energy, and the forest itself seems to exhale a low murmur, as if it is alive with the stories of lives intertwined with despair. The canopy above filters the sunlight into a soft, eerie glow, creating an otherworldly atmosphere that grows more pronounced as twilight descends. Amidst the gnarled roots and the enigmatic rocks, a sense of foreboding lingers, suggesting that those who tread here may not return unchanged, or at all. Historically, Aokigahara has long been associated with tragedy and folklore. Known as the Tree Sea of Trees, it has become infamous as a site for those grappling with despair, drawing countless individuals seeking an end to their suffering. Yet, the forest's legend weaves in and out of ancient Japanese myth, where spirits of the lost roam the earth, and the Yuri, restless souls, call this dark realm their home. The tales of forgotten souls fused with folklore create a tapestry of horror that haunts the imagination, resonating with those who dare to enter. In this collection of chilling stories, we invite you to step deeper into the heart of Aokigahara and explore the haunting tales that dwell within its shadowy confines. Our first tale, Whispers of the Fallen, uncovers the spectral voices of those who have met their tragic fate. Then, in The Shadowed Path, we follow a wanderer who encounters more than just an unsettling silence. In The Wraiths of Solitude, we delve into the agony of isolation, where spirits seek out the companionship denied in life. Finally, we will listen closely to Echoes Under the Canopy, where the past reverberates with haunting memories that refuse to fade away. Prepare to uncover the chilling tales that capture the very essence of Aokigahara, a forest of beauty and tragedy, where every rustle of leaves beckons to the darkness waiting just outside the reach of light. Story 1: Whispers of the Fallen. The hike had started with promise. A crisp autumn morning, golden leaves crunching underfoot, and laughter echoing somewhere in the distance. But as the sun began its slow descent, I, a solitary wanderer, found myself amidst the deeper recesses of Aokigahara, Japan's infamous sea of trees. The welcoming sounds of nature had faded, replaced by an eerie silence that felt almost sentient, blanket of stillness that conjured a sense of dread more than peace. Here, lost among the twisted branches reaching skyward, I stumbled upon remnants of sorrow. Abandoned belongings scattered like breadcrumbs, leading to an unfathomable darkness. A frayed backpack, its contents spilled, revealed a crushed water bottle and a worn-out diary, pages torn and fluttering in the soft breeze. I felt a chill trickle down my spine. I wasn't alone. It was then that I noticed the flickering light in the distance. A lantern. Intrigued, and perhaps against better judgment, I pressed on, my heart racing with both apprehension and a strange compulsion to uncover the source of the light. The air grew thicker as I stepped deeper into the embrace of the trees, their shadows lengthening as twilight approached. The quiet weight of the forest closed in around me, and as I followed the glowing beacon, an unsettling whisper threaded through the branches. A sound half formed, as though the spirits of those who had wandered here before me had awakened. They seemed to beckon, urging me to listen, to hear their tales of despair and longing. Lost among the whispers of the fallen, with each step toward the flickering lantern, the atmosphere shifted dramatically, The shadows around me appeared to writhe and swirl, cloaked in an energy both sad and furious. I felt like an intruder in this mournful sanctuary. My presence an unwelcome disturbance to the ghosts that lingered here. The lantern flickered tantalizingly ahead, beckoning me through the thickening underbrush. It cast an otherworldly glow that danced eerily upon the trunks of ancient trees, their gnarled branches resembling skeletal hands, reaching out for salvation. The whispers seemed to intensify, though the source was unclear. Were they caught on the breeze, or had the spirits themselves begun to emerge, desperate for closure? As I approached the light, the atmosphere shifted again, and time itself felt as if it had warped. I caught fleeting glimpses of haunting figures, their forms indistinct, flickering like shadows cast by a failing candle. Faces emerged in the darkness, each a portrait of sorrow and despair, mouths opening to speak yet producing only silenced echoes. My heart raced, but a morbid curiosity compelled me to chase the illumination further into the depths of the forest. Finally, I reached a small clearing where the lantern hung suspended in mid-air, an anomaly that defied reason. Around it lay a circle of stones, and as I stepped closer, the world around me hushed as if the forest itself held its breath. In that very circle, a diary rested, the leather cover cracked and worn, its clasp broken by the passing of time. I picked it up reverently, feeling the weight of the stories held within its pages. Flipping it open, I was confronted with handwriting that trembled upon the page, the ink blotched with tears, lost memories clawing their way to the surface. The entry on the top read, "I'm sorry," accompanied by a date that was only a month prior. My skin prickled with unease as my eyes scanned the page, every word curling around my thoughts like vines choking a flower. I came here to find peace, but instead, I found despair. They call this place beautiful. But how can beauty exist where pain lingers like a ghost? I can still hear their whispers. So many lost souls, searching for solace. I am just one more casualty in a place that devours hope. Each entry unraveling before me told a different story, a tapestry woven with anguish. Some spoke of hopelessness amidst an overwhelming world. Others described the bodies they had found, the shadows clinging to their edges, but still staring helplessly into the abyss. As I absorbed their pain, I became acutely aware. This forest not just a backdrop of lost wanderers. It was a graveyard of dreams, held captive by secrets, shame, and despair. Suddenly, a sound cut through the stillness. A soft weeping barely above a whisper. I dropped the diary, my heart hammered against my ribs as I spun around, searching for the source. The light of the lantern seemed to flicker violently, casting frantic shadows that danced grotesquely upon the trees. "Help, help me." The voice was faint, lingering on the chill of the night air. I hesitated, caught in a battle between my instincts to flee and an inexplicable desire to respond. I followed the sound, pushing deeper into the veil of shadow. The whispers rose again, each word wrapping around me, forming a cocoon of despair. "Find us," they begged. The sorrow was palpable. I felt the suffocating weight of their unresolved pain wash over me. I stumbled upon yet another scene. A makeshift shrine, festooned with photographs of those who had vanished within these woods, paper cranes fluttering and tangled in the undergrowth. Each picture was like a doorway, opening up to lives once vibrant, but now reduced to echoes on the irrevocable winds of fate. The air was thick with the scent of decay and mourning, a reminder of what had been lost. Yet, among the frozen faces etched in the photographs, I found an eerily familiar visage. The girl, her eyes shimmering with life, looked directly at me, her expression one of unbearable sorrow, tinged with a glint of hope. I felt a pang in my chest, her eyes reached deep into my soul, searching for something, anything that could help her find peace. Suddenly, the lantern flickered wildly, and shadows closed in around me. "Help us." The whispers intensified, swirling like a frenzied storm. The weight of the forest's tragedy pressed upon me, suffocatingly close, as if I were now a part of their tale, a chapter that sought resolution from the past. I turned to escape, but the roots of the trees snarled at my feet, an entanglement made of desperation. I fought against it, my breath becoming shallow as I felt myself being pulled into the depths of grief, a talon, like grip enveloping my heart. With a final surge of strength, I tore myself free, my body colliding with a nearby tree as I fought to regain my footing. I gasped, glancing back to see the figures coalesce, their forms morphing into a tempest of sorrow. They reached for me, arms outstretched across the void, desperate calls twisting into cries of anguish. But the forest would not let me go easily. The ground quaked beneath me, and the lantern shattered, scattering particles of light into the darkness. Just as I thought I would be swallowed by shadow, I felt the weight lifting, my vision blurring, until finally, I broke free, tumbling into a world beyond this cursed realm. Gasping for air, I stumbled back onto the trail, the daylight bathing the forest in a golden hue that felt foreign and wrong. The serenity of the familiar path seemed almost treacherous, a reminder of the haunting reality that remained in the depths behind me. I could still hear their whispers echoing in my mind, still feel the ache of their sorrow, the unresolved pain clinging to the air, resonating within my very being. Aokigahara had welcomed me as an unknowing visitor, but had revealed itself as a layered tapestry of lost souls in agony. The weight of their memories pressed heavily upon me, their stories intertwining with mine in indelible link. Even in the light, I could not forget the despair nestled in the darkness. The stories of the fallen were a testament to life's fragility. Imprinted on the landscape, they would linger long after I had left this haunted place. As I retraced my steps toward the exit, I knew that Aokigahara held more than just moments of tragedy. It held the pain of those who had sought escape, their narratives spilling into the whispers of the forest, waiting for a listener, an honoring of their legacy. As the whispers faded, another tale from the forest began to emerge, a story tied to secrets buried deep in time. What other shadows loomed beneath the serene facade of Aokigahara, waiting to be unveiled? With every step, I could feel the pulse of the forest changing again, darkening into a path yet unexplored. In the stillness that followed, my heart quickened with both intrigue and trepidation for the unknown, a foreboding sense that another story awaited. Story that danced just beyond the veil of the known forest, hidden around the shadowed path. Story 2: The Shadowed Path. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the gnarled trees of Aokigahara, known as the Sea of Trees. The air was thick with an unsettling silence that suffocated all sense of hope. Eiko had always believed her younger brother, Hiro, was invincible, a spirited soul drawn to adventure. But as the forest loomed before her, its haunted beauty masked a grotesque reality. Hiro had vanished. Swallowed by its mysteries, she had come to this secluded blackwood, where whispers of ghostly encounters mingled with tales of despair, nudging her deeper into the tree line in search of the one she loved. Eiko's heart raced as she stumbled along the narrow paths that seemed to spiral into infinity, each one more twisted than the last. The crisp air turned damp, and the sense of moss and decay enveloped her. She could hear the distant cries of crows echoing through the canopy, drawing her toward a shrine she'd glimpsed from a distance. As she approached, her breath quickened at the sight of the dilapidated structure, draped in the shadows of intent. Folding her arms against the chill, Eiko entered the shrine's shadowed threshold. Here, the unnatural silence broke with strange noises. Echoes of the past, she thought. Warped cries that danced like phantoms in the twilight. The air crackled, thick with tension and the yearning of lost souls. As the wind sighed through the trees, Eiko felt a twinge of dread. What had she awakened? And what if the forest held not just answers, but ravenous memories best left unearthed? Eiko stepped inside, her heart thundering in her chest. Shadows pooled in dark corners, and she could almost see shapes moving against the stone walls. She brushed her fingers along an ancient wooden beam, splintered and darkened with age, feeling the cold sweat of dread trickle down her spine. As she closed her eyes for a brief moment, trying to gather her thoughts, a shiver raced through the air. The whisper of voices laced with echoes of laughter and sorrow. "Help me help him." The words drifted into her consciousness, barely audible yet insistent. Aiko opened her eyes, startled to find faint figures peering from beyond the veil of shadows. They wore expressions of agony, but also hope, pointing toward the shrine's altar, urging her to continue. Compelled by an unseen force, Aiko stepped forward. With each step, the warmth of her brother's memory flared brightly in her mind, driving her deeper into the labyrinthine surroundings. She could only trust that the spirits guiding her meant well, despite her gut-wrenching fear that they were mere echoes of lost souls bound to the forest. But the deeper Aiko ventured, the more palpable the heaviness became. Then suddenly, the gloom thickened. The temperature dropped, and she found herself standing on a ridge where time bent and twisted. With clenched teeth and clenched fists, she pressed on, feeling the forest's energy shift with each hesitant breath. The figures reappeared, stretching a hand towards her as if pleading for her attention. It was then that the whispers transformed into a chorus of overlapping voices, their lamentations rising and crashing like waves against the jagged rocks of despair. "Find him. Save him," they beckoned, wrapped in an ethereal desperation she couldn't dismiss. Time slipped away in this darkened realm, and Aiko became disoriented. The moment of realization hit her when she caught a glimpse of Hiro's face among the phantoms, twisted with anguish yet pulsing with urgency. They cried out, their desires echoing in her ears, and she staggered back, dropped to her knees. "No, no! Hiro!" she shouted, her voice lost to the emptiness surrounding her. Just then, she caught sight of the shrine's altar, a rough-hewn stone slab pale in the shadowy light. Clenching her fist around her amulet, a gift from Hiro, she dashed forward, and her breath hitched. The words were there, etched deeply into the stone, each letter a pulse of loss that threatened to consume her. "Forgive me, Aiko," it read. "I tried to fight it. I thought I could escape it." The sensation of time folded upon itself, and visions erupted around Aiko. Snapshots of their childhood, laughter ringing through the air, and then the darkness creeping in. Brushstrokes of sorrow stained her memory as she watched helplessly as Hiro's image flickered, a fading candle in an encroaching storm. Suddenly, the shadowy figures turned to her, their hands moving as if stitching together the fabric of the world around them. They wove scenes of the past before Aiko's pleading eyes. Hiro lost in the depths of the forest, a battle within himself, overwhelmed by the relentless shadows pressing in, a doomed fight against despair. "No," Aiko screamed as the memory distorted into a nightmare. She could feel the edges of reality sharp and cold against her skin, the weight of her brother's struggle almost unbearable. "Hiro, please," she cried out, needing him to hear her, needing him to know she was here. As visions from the past coalesced and splintered, she understood now the significance of what she had found. The shrine was a gateway, grief and ghost entwined, offering insight in circumstances beyond their mortal existence. Yet it was the path she had to traverse that determined resolution, the longing for closure, against the insistence of haunting remembrances. She stepped closer to the altar, each footfall heavy with grief, but resolute in hope. The specters surrounding her paused, their features softening. "Make peace." They murmured, the words billowing like autumn leaves caught in a gust. "Mend the bond before it shatters fully." What did it mean? Was it enough just to speak the words? Aiko pressed her palm to the stone, allowing her warmth to seep into the cold surface. "I forgive you, Hiro. I'm here to save you," she whispered, hoping the message conveyed the depth of her love. A rush of energy swamped her senses. Blinding light, a cacophony of laughter, hands gripping her arms. The phantoms encircled her with urgency, the world around her spinning wildly. She was burning, drowning in emotion as reality cracked like ice beneath her feet. Time stretched and bent, reforming the pieces of her existence. The shadows quelled, their faces transforming into serene smiles, an invitation to destination long tied with anguish and hope. "Come with us, Aiko," they whispered. An agreement forged not in death but liberation, the offering instinctively clear. And in that moment, she saw it. The spectral vision of Hiro emerged from the shrine's shadow, eyes radiant yet filled with despair. "Sister," he breathed, his voice trembling through her soul. "You must not follow me. Find happiness. Let go." Iko's heart tightened. "No, Hiro," she cried, drawing closer, searching for a grasp she could cling to. But as she extended her hand, that flickering light dimmed faintly, a conclusion spinning away like autumn leaves to a restless wind. With a yank that severed the tether of reality, Iko was thrown back into the wooded gloom, staggering and breathless, alone once more. She stood before the now iridescent shrine, her fingertips buzzing where stone met skin. No, she thought, fighting back the tears that threatened to tumble down her cheeks. This wasn't how it was supposed to end. But she knew in her heart echoes whispered hopelessly to her. The shimmering body, fingers curling, became a memory bound forever to the forest. "Forgive me," she would echo. But the forest sang with the stillness of lost connections. Hiro would always be part of it, lost but never truly forgotten. Iko stumbled from the shrine, the shadows closing behind her, sealing away the memories of her brother and the spectral faces that haunted her thoughts. The forest was alive with its foreboding silence, shrouded in the darker echoes of memories that gripped her heart like a vice. Hiro's figure lingered at the fringes of her mind, soft yet unattainable. A ghost that would accompany her long after leaving the shrine's embrace. Even as she stepped beyond the threshold of the tree line and into the light, a gnawing ache accompanied her every step. The forest had taken her brother, and in its shadows, she felt the weight of countless souls, for each whispered plaint was a cry for help. Aiko trudged forward, but the serenity of the outside world felt false, a deceptive mask over the rawness of her grief. At her side, the wind carried sharp reminders. Swaying branches whispered her name, and the shadows danced playfully even as the sun burned brightly. The H rooted itself deep within, an unwelcome companion, a reminder that the bond between them could never be severed, even in death. She would carry him with her, a flicker of light inside the suffocating darkness, a lighthouse against despair. A promise rippled through her soul. She would honor him in life, no matter how daunting the shadows became. As Iko stepped away from the forest's clutches, her heart heavy yet steadfast, she heard distant whispers weaving through the leaves. A cacophony of sadness and solace, filled with the uncertain whispers of tragedies yet untold. The forest stood behind her, a looming sentinel guarding its secrets, waiting for the next wanderer seeking solace or answers. In her mind, the echoes began to shift, drawing her toward another tale waiting in the heart of Aokigahara. As then, there was Nako, who wandered aimlessly through the woods, seeking redemption for choices that had burdened her spirit. The path she would tread was one of isolation and deep sorrow, a wraith in her own right, lost within the fabric of lost souls. As night drew near, the forest would once again awaken, embracing her in its haunting arms, where shadows would unveil memories best left in the dark, calling forth yet another story from the depths of its overgrown heart. And thus, with a firm grip on her brother's memory, Iko shapes the past as she embarks on her journey into a new chapter, one where the shadows would weave a darker tale yet to be uncovered. In Aokigahara's embrace, the whispers would beckon once more, echoing truths yet unforeseen. Story 3, The Wraiths of Solitude. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting elongated shadows over the ancient trees of Aokigahara, cloaking the landscape in a shroud of twilight. A group of friends, Maya Haruto, Kenji, and Suki, had decided to escape the constraints of their urban lives and venture into the legendary forest. known for its beauty as well as the stories of loss and sorrow that hung in the air, like the mist rolling across the ground. They set up camp in a clearing that felt oddly isolated, the trees clawing at the sky, their boughs heavy with damp foliage. The air was unnaturally cold, a sharp contrast to the warmth of the fire they built with spirited laughter and easy camaraderie. They roasted marshmallows and shared tales of their childhood, light-hearted conversations that veiled an anxiety that perhaps none wished to acknowledge. The stories of those who had ventured into the Aokigahara and never returned lingered at the edge of their minds, uninvited but persistent. As the mist thickened around their clearing, swallowing the distant sounds of the forest, a palpable tension began to weave itself into the fabric of their gathering. Maya lifted her gaze to the trees, feeling a watchful presence beyond the darkened trunks. Haruto joked about the rumored spirits that prowled these woods, but his voice lacked conviction. Suki, engrossed in her phone, searched for tales of the place but found herself abruptly cut off, the screen flickering with static before a sense of foreboding seeped through their laughter like a dark ink stain on a page. Unbeknownst to them, the forest, steeped in the history of grief and despair, watched with bated breath, waiting for the moment to reveal its secrets. The night was just beginning, and so too was their descent into enigma far deeper than they could comprehend. As night descended, the friends sought refuge from the chill with a game of truths and dares to keep the spirit of adventure alive. However, as the fire dwindled, the first signs of strangeness began to manifest. Kenji stumbled into the group, his eyes wide, breath quickening, as he frantically spoke of hearing footsteps echoing through the trees. Footsteps. Suki challenged, raising an eyebrow, her skepticism clashing with the prickle of chill on her skin. It's probably just an animal. Maya shivered, not from the cold but from an inexplicable dread. What kind of animal walks like that, like it's hunting? The laughter they shared transformed into uneasy glances, and one by one, they began to feel something shift in the air. A lingering presence that didn't belong to the natural rhythm of the forest. The flames flickered, casting elongated shadows that danced disruptively. The friends sank into an uneasy silence, the atmosphere thickening as the fog rolled in, swallowing their campsite further. Before long, Haruto suggested they take a walk, hoping to dispel the tension that had settled among them. Armed with flashlights, they ventured into the looming darkness, the beams of light severing the mist, but failing to illuminate the truth within the Aokigahara. As they wandered deeper into the labyrinth of trees, each step felt deceptively weighted. The landscape shifted, and a strange sensation enveloped them, a sense of déjà vu, as if they had trekked this exact path before. Suddenly, they stumbled upon a clearing they did not remember coming into, yet it felt achingly familiar. The tall trees around them seemed to blend into one another, twisting and turning until they distorted into an eerie embrace. With every passing moment, the air turned colder, the invisible burden pressing against them like the depth of despair itself. It was then the wailing began. A chorus of distant cries that pierced the air, echoing through the trees. Each note sent a shiver down their spines, resonating with the very essence of loss. They realized that the whispers beckoning them seemed to have a faint, luminescent glow, guiding them toward the shadows of another time. "Do you hear that?" Suki asked, barely able to speak above the sharp chill that exposed the terror inching into her heart. "It's like," Kenji began, but his voice faded as the group was pulled further into the wailing, as though something unseen was luring them back into history, back to where the echoes of soldiers haunted the very ground they tread upon. Time twisted and warped, dragging them into a series of events that felt strangely cyclical. Maya gasped as a lingering vision flashed before their eyes. Soldiers, faces filled with anguish and desperation, as they fought to each other's side in a battle unsung, lost within the depths of the forest. The friends became witnesses, locked into the shadows of history, trapped in a liminal reality where both present and past coalesced. Suddenly, without warning, they were thrust through another loop, each friend taken back to pivotal moments of sorrow. Haruto stumbled, grappling with confusion as he watched a soldier fall to the ground, the life extinguished from his eyes. The pelting rain, mingled with the cries of despair, evaporated into the mist swirling around them like disapproval from the forest itself. "Are we seeing this?" Suki whispered, her voice trembling. They remained silent, rendering helpless as the memories of others tangled with their own. Each loop dragged them deeper into the tragedy of the battlefield, moments suspended in time that they had no power to alter. The fatigue set in, and Kenji felt it gnaw at his senses, each iteration siphoning more of their essence. Ghostly apparitions of despair began manifesting, not with malicious intent, but as mournful remnants, desperate to relay their stories, trapped in this sorrowful limbo, yearning for recognition. Through the darkness, Maya reached out, feeling the weight of loss coalesce with her own surroundings. The very trees themselves seemed to cry out, the gnarled branches reaching toward them like skeletal fingers, grasping for salvation from the endless grief. "Are we dead?" she asked, her voice quaking with the realization of their circumstance. But Haruto hesitated. "Maybe we're never alive to begin with. Maybe we're part of this now." The forest turned to an orchestra of whispers, drawing them further into its reclamation. Yet intertwined within those whispers, a voice called out to them, gentle yet resonating with urgency, ushering them toward the heart of the battlefield. "I see it," Suki exclaimed, pointing toward a flickering light through the folds of mist. They moved closer, compelled by an unseen force, until they stumbled upon a neglected clearing, filled with remnants of a forgotten battle. Rusted swords and shattered shields lay strewn on the forest floor, overlaid with layers of time and tragedy. Here, the apparitions became clearer, the soldiers' faces twisted in expressions of anguish, their eyes dull with fatigue from the relentless cycles they were forced to relive. It became apparent to the friends that this was a patchwork of lives lost, and each specter tethered to the forest yearned for closure. "Help us," came the collective whisper, a mournful refrain echoing in their minds. "You are our only hope." It was a call that twisted through their souls, binding them to the past. They realized that what lay before them were remnants of lives unsung, each ghost desperately reaching out for a portal of release. "It's not our battle," Kenji whispered, struggling to comprehend the depth of pain before them. "We can't change what's happened." But Maya felt an insistent tug toward the illusions, their pain a fabric that wove itself into her own heart. "What if we could?" she countered, her voice laced with a mix of fear and resolve. As the mists thickened, blurring reality beyond recognition, the voices around them grew louder, flooding their senses. Each friend began reliving snippets of the soldiers' lives, moments that shaped their reality. Families lost, promises broken, futures forever altered. Secrets unraveled like threads in a tapestry, ensnaring them in a dance of grief. The soldiers' memories beckoning to be honored and recognized. The unnamed desires echoed in their minds, urging them to illuminate the pain, to give a voice to those who had been silenced, lost among the trees. One by one, they felt their souls intertwine with the apparitions, confronting the darkness and despair lingering just below the surface. As each ghostly figure reached out, their memories danced before Maya's eyes, depicting the horrors endured over the swirling fog of time. In the midst of the torment, something shifted. The atmosphere thickened, the air electric with a desperate need for release. Maya, consumed by the fervor of the moment, took a deep breath, conjuring the brave heart of what was once fought for, and spoke, her voice trembling like a leaf in the wind, "We see you. We hear you. We remember." At that moment, the silence that had settled over the clearing began to fracture. The gray mist parted slightly, the anguished faces softening as their pain intertwined with the warmth of acknowledgement. The transactions of memory became a fragile bridge, allowing the friends to cross into the depths of the past, each willing to anchor their thoughts and grief onto a piece of the legend that was both liberating and binding. But time, once such a fickle specter, grew cruelly aware of their communion, the woodland confines shifting restlessly as it absorbed the strength of these raw, unyielding emotions. The trees pulsed, setting forth a tremor of energy that crackled through the clearing like a awakening beast beneath the world of the living. Suddenly, the whispers became a cacophony of wails, the soldiers' spirits realizing all at once that escape was not a gift freely given but a price to be paid. One that weighed heavily on those who dared bear witness. Maya. Haruto screamed, panic sparking concern in his eyes. "It's too much! We have to leave." Just as their voices drowned beneath the deafening roars of anguish, the solemn faces of the soldiers shifted, pleading, as they reached towards the friends with an urgency that felt almost desperate. Time began to loop again, and the moment blurred. The friends were caught once more in the relentless whirlpool of experience, flung back into that space of grief and despair, willing to honor the past but unsure of how to ever escape. "I refuse." Maya whispered fiercely into the bluster of sorrow threatening to bind them. "We acknowledge you, but we will not be swept away. We will carry your stories with us." Steeling herself against the suffocating void, as she closed her eyes and reached out toward the luminous specters, pouring herself into the moment. A lifeline extended back to the truths hidden beneath the surface. With each acknowledgement, each story embraced, the wailing began to quieten, the shadows retreating beneath the weight of recognition and acceptance. Liberation hung in the air, a shift in the natural order of things. The friends felt the pull of the forest lessen as they clasped onto the stories with a newfound understanding. In an explosive flash, the world around them twisted violently, air whirling as they hurtled through a cycle unbroken. With a final gasp, the friends found themselves back in the misty clearing where they had begun, breathless and trembling against the backdrop of dying embers. The world stood still, but not the forest. The chill grip of anguish lingered as the shadows of their experience melted into the night's darkness, leaving only whispers of closure trailing like vapor in their wake. As they caught their breaths, each friend looked at the others, equally perplexed yet relieved to be free, though they all felt that something unmovable had changed within them. What would life hold after this? Once more through the fog, they fled, the echoes of the past heavy in their hearts as they sought solace in the safety of daylight. Emerging from Aokigahara, the warmth of the sun felt alien against their skin, each friend blinking against its radiant touch, as though awakening from deep slumber. The forest no longer loomed ominously behind them. Instead, it hummed with the ethereal resonance of stories left unspoken and heart-touches tenderly held. Yet despite this embrace of light, questions gnawed at their minds. What had they truly seen within those haunting loops? Were they a mere figment of their imaginations, or perhaps a glimpse into a history woven through the sighing depths of the forest? The wraiths they encountered, the soldiers yearning for recognition, still echoed softly within their hearts. Maya glanced at her friends, their expressions contoured by disbelief and revelation. Did we really help them? She ventured, her voice uncertain but hopeful. Kenji nodded, though his brow furrowed as if grappling with an unseen weight. "I think we did. But how can we truly know? Are we even present?" He replied, his voice trailing off into an unanswerable question. Each friend felt the tension, the grief and despair intertwined with a curious glimpse of closure, unearthing something both bittersweet and inexplicable. Perhaps the forest had freed them, but also bound them, opening a chasm that whispered night after night, inkling them toward the mystery of what lay beneath the surface of the world they inhabited. With lingering uncertainty as their guide, they vowed to return someday, to give voice to the forgotten and perhaps, in doing so, find peace in the lingering shadows, known and unknown alike. As the friends left the echoes of Aokigahara gradually behind, the depths of the forest cradled their stories like whispers fading into its twisted embrace. Yet, the air grew heavier still, filled with the miasma of secrets waiting just beneath the surface. Among the trees, the lingering wails transformed into murmurs that beckoned unwitting travelers to uncover the tales sleeping in the heart of the grove. With every step, the forest tugged at their thoughts of return, and the voices intertwined with the rustling leaves weaved tales of betrayal. Stories left untold beneath the lush canopy. Stories that threatened to rise from their slumber with a vengeance. Just as the group began to feel a sense of safety returning to their reality, a glimpse of shadow, a flicker of movement, caught their attention at the corner of their eyes. Was it the slightest trace of an ethereal form, or just their minds playing tricks, conjuring what they hoped to leave behind? The deeper they ventured from Aokigahara, the more they felt the forest pulse as if alive. An entity teeming with fragments lost and forgotten. They would soon find themselves drawn back into the mystery of echoes, under the canopy, where the line between the past and future blurred beneath the emerald boughs of fate, and the darkness whispered its secrets anew. Story 4 True. Echoes under the canopy. As the sun dipped low behind the jagged peaks surrounding Aokigahara, the air cooled, thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. Alex Reynolds, stood at the edge of an abandoned trail, heart racing as I prepared my camera equipment. What had begun as a personal exploration of Japan's infamous forest, its whispered legends, lost travelers, and tragic tales, had morphed into a journey I could never have anticipated. The locals had spoken in hushed tones of the strange occurrences within this labyrinth of trees, a unique folklore surrounding spirits that dwelled among the ancient pines. For centuries, Aokigahara had been a site for those seeking respite from their earthly existence. According to lore, the souls of the departed remained, echoing their sorrows and despair within the tree line. As darkness approached, I felt an electric tension in the air. Armed with my camera, I ventured deeper into the forest, the silence thickening with each step. I began to film, hoping to capture the essence of Aokigahara. The whispered regrets of the lost souls, the unseen shadows that danced just out of focus. It wasn't long before the sounds emerged. Faint whispers intersected with the rustle of leaves, a chorus that chilled me to the bone. I saw fleeting shapes darting between tree trunks, their forms blurring in and out of existence. My heart raced, and with every click of the shutter, I began to sense I was not alone. Flickering shadows flitted past the corner of my eye, seemingly beckoning me to follow deeper into their realm. The forest itself seemed alive, breathing, with secrets hidden beneath its moss-laden canopy. As night fell, I couldn't shake the feeling that the echoes I sought were about to reveal themselves in ways I had never imagined. The deeper I delved into Aokigahara's embrace, the more palpable the energy became. I traversed the dense landscape, each tree a sentinel of untold stories, their twisted trunks and gnarled roots framing my path like grotesque sculptors standing watch over the realm of the lost. As the moon waxed full, casting a silvery glow through the branches, my footage began to reveal something wholly unexpected. I reviewed the footage on my camera, the screen bright in the encroaching darkness, and watched in a mixture of horror and fascination. As ghostly faces flickered across the screen, they emerged only for fleeting moments, mouths agape in silent screams, eyes wide with sorrow. As I captured these spectral images, I felt my breath quicken, a primal instinct urging me to flee, but curiosity anchoring me in place. With each haunting figure I recorded, I felt the forest pulling me further into its heart. Shadows darted between the trees, my tiny flashlight, unearthing deeper layers of the forest's despair. The whispers tightened around me like a noose, tangible and urgent. It felt as if the very ground beneath my feet was filled with unease, delivering messages of longing and regret. "Help us," echoed through the foliage, a phantom wind carrying the sound. As I pressed on, I stumbled upon a clearing unlike any I had seen before. Here the trees receded, revealing a small shrine adorned with faded photographs, dried flowers, and worn trinkets, remnants of lives once cherished. A sinister calm enveloped this sacred space, but as I adjusted the lens of my camera, I caught sight of a movement just beyond the shrine. I gasped, heart racing as I swung the camera around, capturing a fleeting image that sent chills down my spine. There before me stood a woman, her form translucent and shrouded in swirling mist. Her hair cascaded like dark water over her shoulders, face strikingly beautiful yet marred by an expression of profound sadness. I fumbled with the camera, desperately trying to focus on her figure as she extended a hand towards me, fingers trembling with a silent plea. "This is my place," she whispered in a voice like wind rustling through the leaves. "You must listen." I could feel an overwhelming sadness seep into my heart. The whispers became a chorus of anguish, binding me in place, a culmination of despair echoing throughout the forest. As she stepped closer, I noticed the ground around her was littered with small tokens. A comb, a child's shoe, photographs. Items that had no doubt belonged to those who had once wandered these paths, never to return. A sudden chill swept through the clearing, and she began to fade, her form dissipating in the mist that cloaked the forest floor. "Remember us," she implored, her voice a ghostly echo through the trees. I found myself gasping for air, a visceral connection surging within me, as if I had touched the core of the wood's grief. Bewildered and entranced, I instinctively raised the camera towards her fading silhouette, capturing the moment of transcendence, before she vanished completely. In her fleeting presence, I understood that the forest was alive with more than just shadows. It was a sanctuary for the lost, a reservoir of unrelenting sorrow. The ensuing hours were a blur, a haze of emotion intermingled with my relentless quest to document every whispered story and every fleeting glimpse of the supernatural. The woods transformed into a visceral maze, electric shadows moving just out of reach, taunting me with their presence. I recorded every spectral face, every quiet plea as it resonated deep within me, drawing me ever deeper under the canopy. I captured images of strange lights illuminating the foliage, spectral shapes blurring in and out of frame. My camera became an extension of my soul, an instrument through which the forest spoke. But the veil of night also unveiled a sinister truth, something aching and raw lurking beneath the surface, a darkness that yearned for recognition. Several times, the woman returned to me in fragments, piecing together a tapestry of sorrow that seeped into my bones. Each apparitioned memories of Hartach into my very being. Questions clawed at the corners of my mind. Who were they? Why had they lingered in this haunted haven? The weight of their stories pressed upon my chest. And in those moments, I felt a connection to something greater than just mere film. A presence just beyond the fringes of my consciousness, urgent yet ephemeral, weaving through my thoughts, merging the borders between my existence and theirs. It was overwhelming, a visceral call to remember and to tell their tales. Exhaustion gripped me as morning light crept into the woods, hinting at the first warm rays piercing through the canopy. The interplay of day and night seemed to awaken the forest, nature's symphony slowly harmonizing with the cacophony of my fear and fascination. I sat on a moss-covered boulder, staring at the camera, sifting through the night's recordings. With the first light, I discovered more than I had anticipated. Each frame replayed intricate scenes, faces twisted in despair, shadows moving with purpose, the forest breathing with memories. Gripped by an uneasy sensation, I couldn't shake the feeling that the spirits had used me as a vessel for their lost voices, a speaker for their sorrow. But it was the final recording that struck at the very core of my being. A single clip captured the last moments before the apparition faded. A glimmering tear rolled down her cheek, ultimately passing into the dark soil beneath her feet. It struck me that Aokigahara held a suffocating grip on the past, a delicate balance between life and the afterlife, a realm where the cries of sorrow echoed endlessly through the trees. Could I remain mere observer, or had I become irrevocably tied to their plight? Back in my peaceful apartment, I watched the footage again under the harsh glow of my laptop screen, my body heavy with the weight of the night. Each whisper, each flash of sorrowful visage replayed in my mind. I paused in the dimness, grappling with the enormity of what I had witnessed. A tapestry of despair sewn into the very fabric of Aokigahara. The enchantment was potent, yet it left me irrevocably changed. The footage flooded my senses. The woman's plea hung in the air around me, encasing me in a shroud of melancholy. I realized that the lines I had once drawn between the living and the dead had blurred, if not entirely vanished. The spirits didn't simply linger. They cried out for semblance of the life they had lost. A canvas of stories that needed not just to be processed but honored. I had entered the forest as a storyteller, but I emerged as a witness, a custodian of their echoes. A part of their world remained tethered to me, a burden I carried like a borrowed shroud. An unbreakable bond that whispered in my dreams. The shadows would forever dance at the edges of my reality. A reminder that among the trees, beneath the canopy, legends live. And in Aokigahara, the forgotten spirits were not confined to myths. They lived, breathed, and endlessly echoed their stories into the souls of those who dare to listen. In the echoes of our four tales, we have navigated the depths of despair, love, and the haunting consequences of human folly. Each story has woven a tapestry of emotional turmoil, the suffocating weight of regret, the pangs of familial loss, the desperation of unfulfilled dreams, and the quest for redemption. From the tragic wanderer seeking solace in the shadowy embrace of ancient trees to the lost souls who linger between the veils of life and the afterlife. The forest reveals itself as a mirror of our deepest fears and hopes. The stark beauty of Aokigahara, with its picturesque vistas, belies the sorrow rooted in its soil, where every whisper of wind seems to carry the weight of countless unspoken tales. As we reflect upon Aokigahara, it becomes clear that this forest is not merely a backdrop for tragic narratives. It is a living testament to history and the unseen forces that bind us to our past. Each rustle of leaves resonates with the whispers of those who have sought refuge among its trees, their stories woven into the fabric of the landscape. The trails we tread echo with the footsteps of transgression's grief, and perhaps a yearning for connection. Here, time seems suspended, allowing the spirits of the lost to wane and wax, waiting for the chance to reveal their stories to those brave enough to delve into their depths. So we depart from the shade of Aokigahara, leaving behind not just the stories we've told, but a lingering question. Is it the souls of the departed that haunt this forest? Or is it the living who are haunted by their presence? Perhaps the forest doesn't just hold the dead. It holds their untold stories, waiting for someone to listen. Waiting for the next seeker to uncover the heart of their tragedy.